We're missing a few people.
Maybe we got 6, okay. There's. We're good.
Get her to sit down.
She shows me stuff now.
Don't mean to interrupt.
Good evening, Mayor.
Call the meeting to order for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, February 14th, 2022. Gina.
Mark Hydrich.
Aye.
Mark Kleesner.
Here.
Mark Piontek. Tom Holmeyer.
Here.
Andy Lucy.
Yes.
John Borgman.
Here?
Chuck Watson.
Here.
Samantha Wacker. Carolyn Witt. Mike Wood. Sal Maniaci.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the minutes from the January 10th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 3, file number 220201. Applicant is requesting to rezone 9 and 11 Burnside from R2 single family to R3 multifamily. Sal?
Yes, thank you. And just quick correction, I didn't catch it beforehand. R2 is actually it's R2 overlay, which is a two-family overlay, single family and two-family. But I'll get into that. So the applicant has submitted an application to rezone this parcel highlighted on the screen. It is currently a duplex, 9 and 11 Burnside. It's the third house up from the dead end of Burnside. And you can see here the property and the entire block is zone R2 overlay. R2 is our two-family zone district that allows for duplexes as well as stacked units. And then our overlay in this area of town allows for single-family uses. That was created years ago because we had a lot of single-family homes actually in that district, and to make them conform with the code, we created that overlay. So actually it's significant more so in this block because everything on the west side is a duplex and everything on the right side actually is a single family. They're all zoned the same, but that zoning allows for single family and two family. As stated in the staff report, the applicant has came up to City Hall and mentioned that whenever the property was built in '96, I believe, that it was built with a third meter, water and electrical meter in there for a basement unit, and they showed interest in adding a third unit to that property. Because of the code, it can only be single family and two family. In order to add a third, they need to go to R3 multifamily. So that's the rezoning they're asking for. In staff's review of this, we are recommending denial of this request because of the fact that this block is completely R2 overlay. This area, the overlay actually is defined by a certain boundary, and approving this, even though it may only be adding one extra unit, may not be a significant change to the neighborhood of one unit, but the precedent of approving a spot zoning, we call it a spot zoning where you don't have anything uniform to it, it's not a transition between uses, and approving just this as R3 with nothing else on the block would not set a good precedent for our zoning code and what we've always recommended in the past. So that really is why we're recommending denial, to keep this as a duplex. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments of Sal?
I thought it was interesting that both of those duplexes, the white one and then one next to it, both have 3 units.
You know, and
I don't know, understand.
96 would have been after our zoning code, so I'm not sure if it was built just kind of with optimism that it could maybe have that. But as far as I know, this area was never zoned for multifamily. It was always two-family. So,
Any other questions, comments by board? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? Come on up, please. I'm sorry. Come on up. Yes, introduce yourself.
My name's Mary Voss, VOSS, and we have property right across the street at number 8 Burnside. And when we go working on our property, it's always congested down there in the evenings, and on the weekends, you can't even find a place to park. So adding more people, more cars down there, it's just gonna make that a bottleneck as it is, because sometimes we can't even park in front of our own property, which is right across the street from us. So my husband would have been here, but has to work tonight, and and his name's Mark Boss, and he doesn't want it either, so that's all I have to say.
That's, thanks. Anyone else? Come on up. Introduce yourself, please.
In front of
If
us.
you would, into the mic.
Oh, my name's Martin Hartzell. My wife and I are the one that own that. And just like he had said, the reason we entertained the thought is there was 3 meters, 3 everything. And we didn't know what the situation was and the possibility of doing that. We were gonna make off-street parking. You know, it wasn't just gonna, you know, I understand the woman's concern. It wasn't gonna be something that we were going to let the people park on the street. I mean, not that they couldn't, but we were gonna have a drive. And I've got some pictures, if anybody's interested in looking at them, what I was gonna do. I mean, not that,
Yeah, we have those in our
Are
packet.
they the ones you submitted with the application?
yes, sir, but
Okay.
it's also a picture of actually the house, and I was gonna show where the drive.
Oh, the other one, okay.
If you're interested in looking at it, probably doesn't matter to you.
No, not real. I don't believe anybody on the board likes to see the photos.
The end use, yeah. I will say, if you want to have them be put into the council packet, you can email them to me, and I can make sure council gets a copy of them before next week.
Okay, I mean, okay, so it's not, we're not gonna get an answer on this tonight.
So this board votes on a recommendation, and they send that recommendation to city council. Ultimately, council has the final say.
Okay.
So-
Basically, whatever these people decide is probably
Not
really
always.
what happens.
Not always,
Not
but
always, but often.
yeah,
Not always.
Not as much as you like?
yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, all right, sir. Well,
I have a question for you before you leave.
I think we do have a question for
Oh,
you.
yes, sir.
Okay, now, if the third family was to move in, would that be set up in the basement?
It was.
building?
Could I show you the pictures?
I see the pictures here, but, so it shows most of the pictures in the basement.
There's a layout in the packet there.
Is there an open staircase to the basement?
What's that, sir?
Is there an open staircase that leads to the basement? Okay.
On a probably a 5-foot wide staircase going down with a door entered in the right-hand side, right-hand end of the building. And then there's a basement, it's all framed out or raised. It's not all framed out, it's petitioned off and roughed in. And on the right-hand side is the 3 meter boxes, and in the basement is 3 water mains.
Would there be any other fire exits other than the stairwell?
Yes, there's 2 egress windows
Okay, all right, thank you.
on that end of the building.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
I will say, if approved, there are still some building code requirements that would have to be checked beforehand on the ingress, egress, to make sure it meets fire code, as well as parking. Every unit has to have at least 2 parking spaces off street, so they'd have to add that regardless, so.
What else would happen with R3 or could happen in the future?
So R3 is just multifamily in general, but it is set by the size of the lot. So in this case, I think it's a 12,000 square foot lot. They couldn't add more. I checked it, it wasn't large enough for a 4th, so it's not like approving the rezoning would open it up for even denser in the future. 3 is as dense as you could get with the size of the lot. But from a zoning perspective, we still didn't think it was a wise choice to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think those windows meet current code egress
Well, and that would have
because
to,
they're too high off the floor.
Yep.
that would have to be
Right,
taken care
I'm
of.
just,
Yeah.
Yep. And that is something, yeah, that is reviewed on any building before they get occupancy, whether it's zoned correctly or not.
This is way too.
Anyone else would like to speak on this?
it can't be more than 30 inches.
If not, any other questions, comments by board? If there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to deny.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. This will still go to council on
It'll actually be Tuesday, the 22nd.
22nd?
Tuesday, the
22nd.
22nd, thank you. Because of the holiday, so it'll be not a week from today, a week from tomorrow. So,
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, item number 4, file number 220202, applicant is requesting a special use permit for 406 East 3rd Street for a short-term rental. Sal?
yes, so this is another request for short-term lodging as it's defined in our code, but more commonly known as Airbnb or VRBO. It is actually directly up the street from the property we just discussed, at 3rd, in between Hooker and Burnside, on the south side of 3rd Street here, 426. The property is also zoned R2 overlay. You can kind of see in this district, that's pretty much the boundary of the R2 overlay. It goes from 5th up to the river outside of the downtown district. And you can see here in the aerial, it does have its own, it does have private parking, its own driveway on site. That it is not a use, that is not a requirement of these special use permits, but it's something we take into consideration when reviewing where it's at in a particular neighborhood. The other thing I want to point out is there are 2 other, we actually approved the one on the south here just a couple months ago, and then the one on the north on Locust has been active for a number of years. And so there are other short-term lodging in the vicinity. These typically are not a detriment to the neighborhood. They're still residential in nature and in use. And as long as they sign up and follow the bed tax and the annual occupancy inspection, we don't see an issue with approving this, so we do recommend approval.
Questions or comments by board members?
Yeah, so this is a 2-story,
Correct.
and are they just the entire house, or are they wanting to have 2 separate?
They've described it as one unit.
Oh, that's what I
If
just
they
wanted to
wish to do that, even though it's 2-family, they could do that as part of the special use. They would just have to sign up for 2 different bed tax, 2 different occupancy inspections.
They would have to have all the other safety and yada, yada, yada.
Yep, so it's a normal
I just
residential
want to
occupancy.
verify that.
Yeah.
That's, okay.
It's a normal residential occupancy inspection, other than the fact that it has to happen every year. They have to show an illuminated exit light, and then fire extinguishers do have to be shown out and
Well, I just wanted to
displayed.
verify for sure it was 2, I knew it was 2 stories, but they were just doing it as one unit stuff, so, okay.
Any other questions, comments by board members? Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this? Please feel free. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Gail Beckman, and this is my husband, Michael, and this will be our 3rd Airbnb that we are trying to get approval for. And our other 2 are working well. We bring a lot of people in to Washington, so we're hoping this one will do the same.
Any
That's it, and
questions?
it will be only a single.
Okay, that's
One
what I was
single,
wondering.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else in the audience? If not, any other comments, questions by board? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thanks.
Thank you.
Item number 5, file number 220203, Annexation, the Highlands. Sal.
Well, and I'm also going to do the presentation for 5 and 6 as one, because you can see this is kind of a it's a convoluted application, but I do think it's cleaning a lot of things up down in that area that have been growing for a long time. So let me pull that up. All right. So yes, as you can see here, we received 2 applications for the Highlands, and this is the commercial residential development on what we've been calling the High Street extension for a number of years now. Obviously, we've reviewed a lot of this. There's the multifamily going up in this area. This is commercial that's already started, and then there's senior community district down here that's already obviously been developed. You can tell this is a very old aerial. We have not had these updated from the county yet. A lot of this has already started to develop, especially High Street to the south. But one thing I want to point out before I get into the first request is the zoning here. And so This area in purple is Senior Community District. That is what was considered a planned district that we had in our old zoning code. In 2017, when we redid our zoning code, we actually removed that as a zoning district that could be requested, but it still exists on our current zoning map. So they still have to follow that 2017 code, but it is a zoning that is no longer able to be requested. But one thing I want to point out here is that you can see when they first asked for that, or probably annexed it and got it at the same time, I believe, this was all one parcel, and that's why it kind of landed the way it was. And High Street, as it's been constructed, didn't follow that property boundary. You know, no one knew exactly where it was going to go based on the topography. And so you can see this purple strip on the wrong side of the road here. There's really no reason for that to remain senior community with that small strip there. It's obviously going to go into the area. And so this area right here is kind of the main area of what's being annexed. I'll show it's not all being annexed, but a large portion of it, about 8 acres. And then this strip all the way along where High Street's going to be extended is what's being rezoned. So there are 2 applications with 6 different requests, because there are 3 different zoning requests for the annexation, and then 3 different rezonings along that strip I just pointed out to match the newly annexed area. So this is the exhibit that was submitted with the application that demonstrates all 6 requests. As you can see here, they are cleaning up and dedicating, well, I should point out this is not a plat. They will be coming back with a plat. But as you can see here, High Street will continue to work its way south all the way to the southern property line, meaning that the strip will continue to be of Senior Community District will continue to be on the wrong side of High Street. I'll put it on the east side of High Street. But first with the annexation, you can see this area number 2, and here this is proposed to be annexed in as commercial. This is already all commercial to the north. So you can see this red is commercial, so they're creating, I called it in my staff report, one last commercial lot kind of as you work south, because then they're going to residential. This tract 5 here, it's got a number 4 on it. They are requesting to annex that piece as R1C, single family attached. This will actually allow for duplexes that are, it's different from the R2 overlay because it's specifically for traditional duplexes with a shared wall, not stacked units. And so this area in pink here is what's coming in, requested to come in for duplexes, R1C. And then to the south, this tract, and this is kind of the most important piece to point out because it does have where Sophia Drive will be connected. There is proposed to come in as R1D, single-family residential. It does allow for 7,500 square foot lots, which is the typical lot size that we have been approving for the last 5 years or so. And so those are kind of the 3 annexation requests as you work your way down. As for the nature of each request and where they're requesting each zoning, staff sees no issue with this. This area to the north that's coming in as commercial is adjacent to existing commercial to the north. Kind of creates that buffer. Actually, it's pretty typical. You got multifamily, commercial, 2-family, single family. It kind of creates that transition as you get from retail down to single family. So that works out nicely there with this top lot becoming uniform. They are proposing to keep this outside of the city limits for now, and then annex that at a later date. And then again, like I said, the 2-family and then single family. So those zonings fit into our comprehensive plan with where the residential, multifamily, and commercial is, and like I said, also creates that transition down. On the rezoning side, just to follow exactly what they're asking with the annexation, this hatched area in 1 is proposed to become commercial, because right now it's Senior Community District on the east side of High Street. This 3, with this kind of hexagon shape or pattern, is proposed to be rezoned from Senior Community District to R1C to match this pink and purple. And then lastly, this very small strip where High Street kind of curves back to the east, it's still Senior Community District. They are requesting to rezone that to match the single family zoning here. So as I kind of mentioned, this really does clean up the development there since that strip has been created as High Street's been extended. And we have no issues with what's being requested. Again, our comp plan for a long time has had this connection here on Sophia Drive. They're obviously not asking to plat that right now. Obviously, they're still designing that, but bringing it into the city limits, into the single-family zoning, shows that what is shown in our comprehensive plan, since we've had since 2013, and really before, when that stub was put in when Autumn Leaf was constructed. So we are recommending approval of this. This will not be the last time you'll see it. Once they have a preliminary plat, we'll be back to you with actually showing how many homes will be on there, and exactly where the road's going to go and everything. But we are recommending approval and excited to see this growth happen further south. So,
This is exciting.
Questions?
Yes, I have one, I think, for
Okay.
now. The plot that's not going to be developed, if that would, when that comes into the city, would that mean then that that would have to be commercial, because it's commercial in the front of up to High Street and on the north side?
have to is a strong word. I would say we would recommend it. So when we get an annexation application for it, they get to pick their zoning,
Right.
and we recommendation on it. We would recommend it be commercial to uniform this all out.
Right, that's
where you
what
see
I was
left.
getting at.
I'm assuming that's their plan, since they decided to make this hatched area number 1 commercial, and this will be kind of the last commercial lot across from the senior community, the river bend here. But yeah, they'll have to designate that on the application. If they were to come in and say, hey, we want to create a strip, keep the strip commercial, and do a weird L shape of multifamily, we would probably change our recommendation on the annexation application.
Because I wouldn't think that strip would be wide enough to do any development on.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have access to it without building through it, so.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Just didn't know if that was in discussions or not.
Any other questions, comments? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Come on up, introduce yourself.
My name is Kurt Understall, for the record. I'm the applicant here tonight. As Sal mentioned, the reason that we've got several tracts of land that we're getting rezoned is High Street had an agreement from the previous owner that I owned it, that you could move High Street 400 feet in either direction. So
Right.
when we annexed the senior housing land in, when was that, 2016?
Correct, yep.
15? We went to section line. So at the time it was done, all the purple was one big square. Since then, Lot 2 and 3 have been sold off to the senior housing folks. And then consequently, the city has eliminated senior housing community zoning. And again, I would like your board sometime maybe to figure out a way to clean that up, because it appears that I was the only developer who put that on the books in 2 spots in town.
You're
So
unique.
it'd be nice to clean that up someday and figure out how to go through that process. But anyway, that being said, we plan to bring in tract 4 and 5, and then 2 was land that was not in the city, so we want to bring that in, which matched some of the land that, I think it's called, glasses on here, matches
6C, I believe.
6C up there, yeah, 6C. So the remnant piece up top adds to the piece that's already in the city, which if you go out there, Oak Point Senior Assisted Living Center is the neighbor. As Sal said, the Google Maps haven't updated, but the Assisted Living Center is sitting on 6B.
Yep, right here.
So it's just another commercial lot next to the Assisted Living Center. And we hope to be back next month with a preliminary plat on tract 4, which will be all single-family residential, bringing Sophia Drive into Autumn Leaf, connecting that. And then just platting basically tract 3 as it sits now as a lot, basically. We have a prospective buyer for that land, basically continuation of what's there now, so.
Questions, comments by board? All right, thanks.
Kurt, it's exciting to see this coming forward.
Yeah,
You
it is.
know, I
It's
mean,
been
we're,
a long time.
it's been a long time talking about it and looking at it and things like that. So thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your
Town keeps growing.
commitment. So,
Makes good sense.
And you get-
And the
Thanks.
interconnecting streets.
yes, the
huge.
streets
It's
are,
gonna-
streets are great.
Connecting street, that's a good thing.
Would you like to come up?
It's gonna happen.
Hi, my name is Brandy Hagedorn.
Yeah, who's that?
Resident, this is Peyton Hagedorn, my daughter. We're residents of Autumn Leaf, and I'm unfamiliar with how all of this works, but, I mean, in my personal opinion, it seems like when I read the article in the newspaper, I was a little concerned, because I know the intent is to connect on to Sophia, and one of the most wonderful things about our subdivision is, I don't think you could find a subdivision in Washington where you have families out and about, children walking their dogs, children on scooters, just families in the streets and out in their yards. So I'm a bit concerned that we don't know how many houses are going to be added on the other side. And the way that I read it and interpreted it, and I could be wrong, was that it's important to be a cut through to Highway A. While I appreciate the development, I think that we have to balance that out with neighborhoods, existing neighborhoods. I think our subdivision is probably about 15 years old, and try to balance out that growth and also our existing neighborhoods and communities. So I'm very concerned that people would be driving through our neighborhood as a cut through to Highway A, and it would really take away from our subdivision as it is today without knowing the style of homes, the number of people that are going to be living there. And while it's important that we improve our roads, cutting through the subdivision, I think it's 20 miles an hour, maybe 25, whereas Highway 100 has a much higher speed limit. And I don't know why it seems important to the city to do this cut through. And at this point, our subdivision has been in existence for so long, I'm just concerned about this process, quite honestly.
Sal, do you want to go
Yeah.
into the?
So I'm going to pull up the comprehensive plan. So we have, there's, page 61. There we go. So obviously in here, let me zoom in. When Autumn Leaf was developed, those streets were stubbed on purpose for future development.
I understand.
Yeah, and so the main thing being connectivity for public access, our emergency services to come in and out.
Emergency services.
Also, there's a water line needs to be looped. I know our water department's been wanting to do that a long time. But for transportation planning purposes, it really doesn't make sense for this to be the major thoroughfare to connect if you wanted to make a shortcut between Highway A and Highway 100. It's more about interconnectivity for this neighborhood and a safer access to to Autumn Leaf. If you see here long-term, this is, the area has to develop, and as things come in, we keep going farther south. If there's going to be a cut-through, this is what we can determine to be the cut-through to Highway A. We call it the east-west parkway, and where Chamber Drive comes in, High Street is planned to come all the way down.
I don't think they're gonna zigzag through your subdivision as much as, but it's like mainly the safety for the access. You only have one access in and one access out.
And I understand, because I actually live on the other street that dead ends. But at this point, I don't know, I can't speak to us having any issues after being there for 15 years, so.
You were just lucky you weren't home the day we had to close the street up close to Highway A for a house fire, and we had to close for about 2 hours.
I did see that it was closed recently due to a car accident. It's
Yeah,
just.
and that too.
And I know while you say there's a main cut through over here, it is gonna increase the traffic through our subdivision as well. So, I really hate to see our subdivision impacted negatively. I appreciate growth, but I do think that we need to give existing streets and subdivisions consideration. I understand it's a long-term plan. We knew that when we moved there. But at this point, I just hate to see our neighborhood affected, because we really, at this point, we don't know how many homes or families will live there. And so there is a potential, obviously, it'll increase traffic through our neighborhood, which will be detrimental to the families that live there.
That will be the next step when he comes back with the plans, that we can see how it's going to lay out and everything,
Yeah.
as far as density. But still, I mean, we've always had that as an access and not, I can't say people won't cut through.
No.
Yeah,
And
but-
I do know that, speaking with the developer of our subdivision, that was the plan. But having gone so long, and while you say there could have been something, I think it'll be more detrimental than advantageous for our subdivision to have this street extended. But that's my opinion, and I can tell you, I would invite you all to drive through our subdivision on a nice warm day and see all the families. And it's troubling to me because people will, even though we're gonna have an additional cut through, if you will, they will cut through our subdivision. And we all know how careless people are, and it will be detrimental to our subdivision.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Any other questions, comments by board?
Somebody here.
You got one?
Oh, sorry.
My name's Mark Ananoff. I live on the street that Emily, so the one over. My concerns are that I see you've got plans to attach both of them. I don't ever see the need to attach both of them. I think you could still develop Emily, you know, because I think he's already bought that land. So you could develop that without connecting them both. I understand your need to connect one of them, but connecting both of them, I think, is a little overkill.
So this is shown in our comprehensive plan as a possibility. It's a recommendation. Until that land is actually annexed in and has a plan for it, we don't know if that'll actually come through. I can tell you from a city planning and connectivity, the less cul-de-sacs, the better. That's just how we plan. But if, that would be up to Plan and Zoning Council if one connection is enough to then say, okay, a second cul-de-sac here is fine. But that, we won't know until someone comes in with a plan for that.
And then, you know, is there real, you know, what you do here as far as, you know, that multifamily coming up at the end of the cul-de-sac there, you know, on the east side,
Multifamily.
you know, it stops basically at the creek there, at the 3, but there's no intention as that goes into the land that's gonna be able to be developed as single family to continue that along the east side of High Street.
Continue
I
this,
don't want the,
Where are you?
where your 3 goes to the 5 in there, in your hatch. It's all purple, so it's, yeah.
yeah,
So that's.
that's gonna be
right now
single
it's
family.
Single family, but it's like, you have no intent of ever letting that multifamily bleed into all those single residents.
No, I mean, in our comprehensive plan, it shows residential as you go further south, and so, yeah, I mean, I would be very surprised if
Yeah.
the Marquardt Farm to the south became multifamily.
Right.
Yeah, and then as you get out of the, I want to say, the stream floodplain there and up onto the top where it's all developable, I'm assuming the west side's intent would be single resident also, even on the west side of High Street.
Further south than here, from here? Yeah, I mean, further south of here, it's all planned to be single family. In our comprehensive plan, again, you'd have to wait for someone to buy it, annex it, request it, but
He's already bought it, I'm pretty sure.
And the other intent there is that High Street would be limited access, so you couldn't have houses with driveways coming out onto High Street. That's kind of been put in to our plan too already. So it would be a major thoroughfare through, and you wouldn't have a single-family residence built right on High Street with their driveway.
yeah, you'd have to have
It
streets
would have
coming
to
off
be
of it.
streets coming off of High Street,
Okay.
is how our plan is laid
Or
out.
could be their backyards or something.
Correct.
It'd be their
Right.
backyards,
Correct.
but they would not access
High
a
Street.
driveway onto High Street. That's
Yep.
what he's saying.
No. Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Anyone else? If not, any other questions, comments by board?
I
How
will
do
need
we want to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
We'll
need
do
two
the
motions.
first one, just the annexation.
one for the annexation first, and then one for the rezoning.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to annex.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to item number 6, file number 220204, the request for rezoning.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning request for the 3 items per staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. This
All right.
will also go to council
On Tuesday.
22nd.
Yeah, and actually, the way it timed out with the annexation notice and the paper, both of them will be the same night, so.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 7, file number 220205. Applicant is requesting to rezone 426 West Front Street from M1 Industrial to C3 Downtown District. Sal?
Yes, so, as we're all aware, when we redid our C3 Downtown District about 6 months ago, the owner of 426 West Front, commonly known as the Tibby Power Building, opted out of that district because they wanted to keep their options open for if they wanted to keep it industrial. They didn't have a user for it at the time. They do now have a user for it that fits into the C3 district, and so they have requested to now come into the C3 district. So you can see here where we kind of drew that boundary. Here, this gray was where it was still industrial from when it was a power company. And now they're wanting to come in and match the C3 zoning. So recommendation is the same we had 6 months ago. We recommend approval. It'll clean it up, allow them to not have to provide off-street parking, which is something we wouldn't want to encourage there in the historic area anyway. So recommend approval and happy to move forward.
Questions, comments of Sal by board? Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this?
Sal, I do have one question. That parking that is shown from the aerial map there to the west, I guess, of the building, is that parking for that lot?
It is. I think they may have plans for the lot that they didn't want to have to provide off-street parking.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions or comments by board? If not,
Make a motion.
Mark made a motion.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Sal, moving on to item number 8, the discussion regarding file number 22004, Wonderlick Surveying and Horse Camp.
yeah, I won't make you read the whole thing.
Thank you.
So we have not had one of these in a long time, so a little refresher. When there is a plat requested in the county within 1.5 miles of our city limits, we are notified of it to be able to give comment on it. We've gotten these a couple times a year that we actually don't bring to planning and zoning if they don't have any improvements to it. A lot of times, I say 95% of the time, it's a 3-acre subdivision where they're just separating a farm into lots and there's not actually any improvements going in. In this case, there are improvements requested on this. So the location of this, as you can tell, this is Ming Estates, Old 100, wraps around here. I have all 3 parcels highlighted right here. They're not developing all of this. It's just how the parcels sit currently. But they're requesting to put in this cul-de-sac street here, 7 lots. This, I will say, does meet the county requirements. And so they are ready to move forward at their meeting at Planning and Zoning on Monday, or on Tuesday. And they actually, since it is just a minor subdivision, they don't have to go to the county commission. They have that just approved at their Planning and Zoning. The reason we are bringing it to you for comment is that there are some things in there that do not meet city requirements, and we do have in our comprehensive plan of this area eventually being annexed in. And so what we typically do on this is we have the Planning and Zoning Commission sign a letter saying that this doesn't meet the requirements, here's what we'd like to see changed, and send that off to the county commission. And city council can actually pass a resolution to force the county commission to vote on it. I would say historically, doesn't necessarily change anything, but at least puts it on the record of what our city requirements are. So the main 4, or the only 4, they have a 20-foot wide street. We would allow 30 in the city limits because it's 10 lots or less. It does exceed 770 feet. It's over 1,000 feet. We require any block that's over 770 to have not just a turnaround, but actually a second access to it. So another street cut. They have an 84-foot cul-de-sac in the county. We have 96. And then obviously they're requesting a gravel road, which we wouldn't have if it was annexed. We've spoken to the developer. I do believe they're actually going to widen that to 30. to, meet some of the fire requirements there, but the rest of them are going to remain the same. But this was as submitted, so I'm going to make our comments regardless. So tonight, I don't necessarily need much other than a motion to send a letter of what requirements it's not meeting in the city limits. We'll have Tom sign it, and then next week, council will decide if they want to require the county commission to force a vote or just put it on record and move on.
Do you know what they're doing for sewer and water?
On-site septic and well.
They are
Really?
part of whatever water district out there.
Yeah,
They are part of the water district. I don't,
but there's not water.
well, they could extend it from Ming, I guess, but as far as I know, it'll be on-site septic and well,
There wouldn't be
There's no water, no.
so.
Do you know how long that is? That's,
The street, it's 1,200. So, we did have some conversations with the developer about, possibly, putting in a side street here, meeting the requirements, but, I think in their eyes, it's very long. There's a lot of land to be developed here between the existing city limits. This, I will tell you, Ming, I think, is at the 1.5 miles. This is probably the very edge of what we'd even be notified of. But to fair process what we do for everyone else, we said we'd follow the comments, send it along, and if it gets put in a garbage bin, it gets put in a garbage bin, but we at least did the process.
The left line of lots 1, 2, and 3, where does that lay in the, you had showed your 3 plots of land there earlier. Do you have?
Yeah. So the left lines up with this intersection right here. So they're not making a 4-way at this intersection here, but it will, that's kind of where it goes in. So you can see that driveway.
There's the edge.
Yep, the entrance there, so.
any other
Still,
questions,
it's like,
comments?
I wonder if you could propose if they could leave easement between lots 1 and 2, that you could connect out.
Well, the problem being is that if it becomes gravel, we don't want it in the future anyway.
No.
So they weren't necessarily against having an easement for a stub, but then if this all gets developed to city standards, you're gonna have a stub to a non-city standard street.
Yeah.
It's almost like even if we develop all the way around it, just let it be its own thing, it'll be private. And that happens, I mean, we have,
Just like Meadowlark.
yeah, we have private streets,
Yeah.
in closer to downtown that were from way back when that we kind of grew around them, so,
It's going to happen in the future.
yeah. So,
Okay.
You want a motion that,
yeah, if just a motion to send a letter, we will bring it to council as well.
I'll make a motion to send the letter.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Any other business?
We have our comprehensive plan interviews on Wednesday and Thursday from 3 to 5, so whoever can make it, I appreciate that. I think we had 6 confirmations for both meeting, plus 4 staff members. Those will be closed to the public, just so we can interview all of them, and then I will have score sheets for everybody to fill out so we can kind of see. I was talking to John beforehand, we had kind of a good idea. We can get an idea of compare them on the score sheet of what they've already submitted, and then some additional categories we want to ask, and that way we can, 2 days back-to-back, get them through, and then we'll meet internally to kind of figure out who we want to offer a contract to. Keep in mind, we'll probably want to make that decision pretty quick. 6 months is what I originally scheduled for this, but if you saw, a lot of them in there said they'd prefer 9. I don't know, it's just because of COVID and everything, it's taking longer maybe to get meetings and the public input. So if we were able to get a firm selected by the 25th, so we have all next week then to look at the scores, we can have a contract on the first meeting in March, and that gives us our 9 months.
Just for the commission's information too, the fire department is pursuing getting an updated fire station study location done for the entire protection area, not just the city. So that last was done in 2018, and when we found and started reviewing that, there's a lot of information there that's dated.
Okay.
So we're actually going to the district board meeting tomorrow night to request some funds for them to participate in that study. So it's all kind of happening in conjunction with ours. So,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, that's why
So
I wanted-
we've looked at, we had budgeted for the 10-year comprehensive plan, something obviously we only pay for every 10 years, and an economic development strategy that we've done, last one we did was 6 years ago. And so we have already asked some of the firms to say, if you could put those together, can you also do that strategy? We are, one of the scoring sheets is not only how they interact with the public and get the public input, but each individual department head, because our current comp plan breaks down into sewer and water needs, parks needs, fire, emergency services, all of that. And so one thing I'll be interested to ask is how they've had success in the past of making sure every single department is included when it comes to it, because public input's great, but we're not going to get public input on what sewer and water lines need to be replaced because they're clay, you know, so we need to make sure that those are integrated as goals and objectives in the comprehensive plan as well, and the fire department, parks, all of that. So Wayne, I did invite Wayne, John Nilgis, and Darren to also be on the scoring committee as well. So we'll have some department heads there, then after we pick, we'll get all the department heads' input. So
Didn't the Parks Department do one a few years ago?
they have had one in the past, and that is something Wayne and I have already discussed, that he's going to have some questions to the firms of, you know, if we could maybe combine the parks budget and the planning and zoning budget to include all the study in one, why not? So, again, scheduling-wise, we have to make sure we can fit it all in 9 months, but I imagine some of the questions you ask for general comp plan are going to be very similar to the questions you ask for a parks plan. So,
It'd be nice to tie that all together.
yeah.
it would.
Yep.
That would be really
Yes, it
nice.
would.
And one of the firms that already submitted examples of the economic development, like a workforce analysis. That's the main thing we want for the economic development strategy, is how many people are commuting in, how many people are commuting out, that kind of thing. What's the commute times? We don't get that in a regular comprehensive plan. So trying to cover all of our boxes in one 10-year study. I will say the workforce study is something we're going to have to do more common, just because I submitted on a project today where I used 2017 numbers, and they're like, that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So
How many interviews will you do?
we're going to do 4. So I received 4, and I decided, you know what, that's not too daunting. If we could do it in 2 days, let's just interview all 4. That we were going to do an internal scoring with just city staff, but if I had gotten 8, I would have done that. But at 4, we figured we could just do them all.
So when do you, will you have that scoring sheet to us before
Tomorrow.
the meeting? Tomorrow?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, I'm going to finalize that tomorrow. Gina already sent me one, thank you, and I'm going to add to it, and we'll get that out, so.
Okay, super.
Any other questions? Comments? Any other business anybody'd like to bring forward? If not, entertain one last motion.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you all. Thank you for being here.
We will see you Wednesday.
One more good meeting under your belt.
Belt's getting pretty tight.
So what would it take?